Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world. And so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much. And all the better for knowing that you're joining me tonight for a lovely story, because nothing beats a good story, as I always say. And so we've got one for you tonight. So before we get started, don't forget to go and get that effervescent sparkling drink or that lovely hot cup of cocoa, and subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, the taxi driver had been exceedingly pleasant to me throughout our short journey when he picked me up from the station, where I'd taken the Amtrak service to Nashville. The taxi driver was clearly a local Tennessee man, in his late 40s, I'd say, and when I told him where I was going, his expression had become sombre, his eyes rather round. He kept looking at me through the visor mirror, which I found rather uncomfortable at first, but I soon got used to it. He was only trying to be friendly. "I know where you're going. I don't live far from there. It's been empty for a long time, the old place," he says. "Oh, you mean Birchwood Heights? That's right. I gather it has been empty." "What brings you to our part of the world? You're not from around here, are you?" "No, that's right. I'm from the lower west side of Manhattan in New York. I've actually never been to Tennessee before. It's really beautiful. I do love the mountains, so I think I'm going to really like it here. All these wide open spaces, the clean, fresh air. It's quite marvellous, isn't it?" "A world away from New York, young lady. A world away. Tennessee gets under your skin, you know. Ask anyone who lives around here. They'll tell you exactly the same. I'd never live anywhere else in the world. Not if you paid me. I don't know how anyone could live in a booming city. I visited New York once for a couple of days. Couldn't wait to leave, personally. The sound of all that traffic and the hectic buzz of the place, it got to me. I found it quite daunting, I hasten to say. I couldn't wait to leave. I felt like a fish out of water. I prefer a slower, more easy-going pace to life myself." "Well, I love New York, actually. I've lived there all my life, but I do get what you mean. It is a buzzing hive of activity. If you're used to a tranquil oasis like this and lots of space, I imagine it would be probably overwhelming." The taxi driver glances at me through the visor mirror again. "Why did you leave New York to come here? I hope I'm not being rather nosy." "I've broken up with my boyfriend. I decided I need a break. I thought coming out here would be a good start for me. I've taken some time off work, you see." "I see. I'm very sorry to hear about that. Your boyfriend, I mean. Relationships aren't very easy, are they? Not even at the best of times. Believe me, I know. I've got lots of experience in that regard," he chuckles. I wipe away a couple of tears as I think about Heath, and how he had told me it was over between us, just like that, after we'd been together for over 5 years. I'd never once got the sense that he wasn't as invested in the relationship as I was, so for me breaking up with him had been the hardest experience of my life. I needed to get away from New York and increase the distance between us. This way it would be easier for me to heal. Even my parents had suggested it would be a great idea for me to go and stay at Birchwood Heights in Tennessee. "It's beautiful in Tennessee," my mother assured me. "I visited it once when I was a young girl. The mountain views there are stupendous." My father had taken me into his arms and said, "Carmel, all I can say, sweetheart, is Heath is a prize idiot for letting you go. You're a precious treasure, you are. And if he was so willing to dump you like this, then he doesn't deserve you. More fool him, that's what I say." My father was not an effusive man, but much more inclined to be reticently reserved and to keep his thoughts and opinions to himself. But for him to take me into his arms like this so affectionately and say such kind, tender words, it had literally melted my heart like butter. Furthermore, I knew he meant every word of what he said. I had never seen my father look so capriciously belligerent. He looked like he could actually wallop and throttle Heath over the head, if given the opportunity or chance, for daring to dump his beloved daughter. My father would have moved the sun and the stars for me, and walked easily to the ends of the earth. He was instinctively so protective. So yes, you could say I was a daddy's girl. Your father's absolutely right, said my mother, who was much more feisty and given to saying exactly what she thought, without exercising much of a filter. If ever I see that young man around here again, I'll kill him myself. How dare he treat you with so little disregard, spitting you out of his mouth like an old piece of chewing gum? It doesn't get worse than that, does it? Don't be hard on Heath, Mum. He wants out of the relationship, that's all. It's hardly a crime. People break up all the time, don't they? It's part of life. Not when they haven't got a good reason for it, they don't. The man never gave you an explanation as to why it was over. Things were going so well between the both of you. I saw that for myself. From where I was standing, he looked smitten by you. And now this. It makes no sense. No sense at all. Maybe he's fallen for someone else, prettier, funnier than me, I suggest. It does happen. As if anyone could be prettier and funnier than you, Carmel, pipes my father. The idea is ridiculous. Stop your flattery, Daddy. You say that 'cause you're biased. Parents always believe their kids are the cream of the crop, don't they? Too bad the rest of the world doesn't actually agree. I'm sorry, young lady. I didn't mean to upset you, says the taxi driver, looking at me empathetically, through the visor mirror again. I can see I've hit a raw nerve there. I didn't mean to make you cry. No, it's fine, I say, blowing my nose loudly into a tissue. It's just fresh, you know. Of course it is. Believe me, young lady, take it from me. Relationships are not without their challenges. I broke up with my girlfriend 3 times, you know. But now we're happily married with 3 children. So even if there is a crack in the wall, there's always a hope that it might be fixed with some cement. You know the saying, it's not over until the fat lady sings. So why Hazelwood Heights, if you don't mind my asking you? Why would you go there? Of what interest is the old place to you? It's been empty a very long time since the old lady died. What was her name? Sonia Crawford, that's right. I saw the old lady around the place from time to time, occasionally in town. She seemed like a sweet old dear. Always dyed her hair a very bright pink, you know. She was my great-aunt Sonia Crawford. She left Hazelwood Heights to me, just like that. I never actually knew her, never met her, you know. You do know how she died, miss, I take it? Yes, I did hear. I gather she was found ripped to shreds in the woodgrove. They think it was a bear attack. Horrible way to go. It must have been horrific to find her like that. And that doesn't bother you, miss? The way she died? It would most certainly bother me. Not at all. Obviously it's dreadfully tragic how she died, and I wouldn't wish that kind of death on anyone. Let's not kid. It must have been brutal. All I can say is that I hope she didn't suffer. But think about it. How many people get killed by bears every year? Not many. It's probably as random as being bitten by a shark. Hardly likely. Needless to say, I came well prepared. I brought bear spray with me. And believe me, I won't venture out of the house without a baseball bat at night. I joke. But the taxi driver does not laugh with me. So you haven't heard the rumours then? What rumours? About Hazelwood Heights, of course. No, I live in New York. I don't know much about my great-aunt's place. As I told you, I've never ever visited it. Well, it's believed to be haunted. The woods around there are very, very strange indeed. And there are a plethora of stories, I hasten to say. Horrifying stories. Stories that will make you have nightmares that go back a long, long time. I imagine the old dear must have experienced stuff going on in that house. I know the people before her left that place in one hell of a hurry. They couldn't get away fast enough, you know. Oh, I'm not worried about stuff like that. I've never heard that Hazelwood Heights is haunted, but it doesn't bother me. You see, I don't believe in stuff like that. Well, you'll change your mind, young lady.
You will surely change your mind, and that is a promise. Most people who've lived in the mountains here will have a story to tell, of which they have no rational explanation. Things happen in the mountains, ghostly phenomena, strange lights, unusual paranormal activity. The locals are very well acquainted with this stuff. I know that Hazelwood Heights is a house renowned for ghostly activity. In an old house there are many secrets, many strange happenings. You do know what happened there in the 1800s, do you not?
No, I don't. What happened? Once again the taxi driver is glancing at me through the visor mirror. I'm not exactly sure what he's thinking. Perhaps he's trying to gauge my reaction. I wonder why he knows so much about Hazelwood Heights. Is that what it's like around here? Everybody knowing each other's business?
2 farm workers, Eddie and Wallace Redvine. Yes, that's what I think their names were. I haven't got the best memory, you know. But some things around here you don't easily forget. They stick like superglue. And this is one of those stories that scared the living daylights out of me when I was a young boy. Those 2 poor farmhands from the 1800s were tragically found hanged in the woods. Everyone clandestinely suspected it was the farmer who was responsible. He hired the lads for manual labour around his farm. They believed he was accountable for the murder. Some of the chickens and pigs had been pilferaged, and he blamed the young lads for this outrage. And he was particularly angry, as a lot of his moonshine had mysteriously done a vanishing act. And that farmer loved his booze. Woe betide you if you went anywhere near it, as he'd have your guts for garters. And I'm not kidding either. Some people can be very protective over their stash, you know. I believe the stolen alcohol bothered him very much. He guarded the stuff like gold dust. He enjoyed getting rather inebriated, I am told. It was said, in an act of impassioned, heated rage, he hung both of those poor young boys in the wood grove at gunpoint. I'm sure they were responsible for the thefts, but by golly, hanging those boys for something so trivial was ridiculous. But then the farmer did not think it was ridiculous. I gather old Farmer Thomas Hewitt, I think his name was. Well, he had a hell of a temper on him. They say he beat up his own wife. She was often seen around town with a black eye, or suspicious bruises on her face and arms.
That's terrible. Really terrible. Are you telling me they remember all these details from the 1800s? Did Farmer Thomas Hewitt get into trouble for what he'd done?
Oh, yes. Stories around here get passed down from generation to generation, you know. Some people around here have long memories. They don't easily forget. No, they couldn't prove anything, as the farmer had a convenient alibi, it would seem. His wife, who claimed he'd been laid up in bed all night, nursing a dreadful hangover from all that moonshine, and was not in a condition to have caused the boys any bodily harm.
I'm sure the poor woman was only covering for her husband, because she was terrified that if she didn't support his story, she'd end up with another black eye.
Of course, you're absolutely right. She was certainly not a reliable witness. I agree. More to the point, when your aunt was alive, a couple of young men were poaching in those woods there, on Hazelwood Heights property, where the farmer lived at the time.
Are you saying what I actually think you're saying? That this Farmer Hewitt, whatever his name is, who lived in the 1800s and was suspected of murdering those 2 poor farmhands, are you saying he lived in Hazelwood Height House, where my aunt lived? I asked, astonished, not quite knowing how to take the fact that a potential murderer had once owned the property my great-aunt left to me. That was not a good feeling for me to stomach, and I was beginning to feel rather ill at ease. I knew so little about this property that I was intending to stay at for a few weeks. I wasn't superstitious, but I couldn't help wondering if by coming to Hazelwood Heights I was potentially opening a can of worms. But surely not. I didn't believe in the paranormal anyway. I was a sensible, down-to-earth New York girl, with my feet firmly on the ground, not inclined to fanciful thinking or wild imaginations that country folk like people here in Tennessee might more easily entertain. The faint whisperings and the echoes of a past when old tales passed down from generation to generation of family trees had grown legs and been blown out of all proportion.
Yes, that's right. Although he owned a lot more land, much of it had been sold off to other farmers. But yes, he lived in that there house. Obviously, over the years it was refurbished, but still the place is steeped in a rich, rather vibrant history. It was incredulous, if you ask me, that the farmer got away with those hangings. The wood grove is very close to the house, I'm afraid to say. But who else could have done the crime?
Well, there's always the element of doubt, I say, holding on to a little nugget of hope, because if I'm going to be staying at Farmer Hewitt's old house that he once owned in the good old days, would do well to believe he was not a murderer, as the very idea, or even suggestion, leaves me ever so slightly ruffled up, rather like a pigeon that's been attacked by the household tabby, and looks worse for wear.
You mean innocent until proven guilty, is that what you're saying?
Something like that. What were you saying about the poachers in the wood? What happened to them?
They had quite a night up there in those woods, let me tell you. Scared out of their wits they were. Never been near the woods since. They claimed they saw the apparitions of the two hanged men swinging from one of the old oak trees there. It was terrifying, but that wasn't the worst of it. They claimed they were chased out of the wood grove by a very pugnacious, irate man who appeared to be wearing 1800 clothes, and he reeked of alcohol. They described him as being so lifelike, you couldn't tell the difference, you couldn't tell he was a ghost. He grabbed them and flung them to the ground violently, screaming in their ears for them to get out or he would kill them, like he had done the other lads. The young lads were covered in black bruises, deep scratches, and they had strangle marks around their necks. And I'm not kidding either. My guess it was the incandescent farmer, still causing pandemonium from beyond the grave. People think ghosts can't harm you, but I beg to differ. I've heard stories, I've seen stuff that I don't care to repeat to you. And I'm telling you, ghosts can harm you.
Couldn't they have been making it up for attention, I mean? You know what young people are like. Anything for attention, for a good story. Often inclined to exaggerate, perhaps. Maybe they heard the rumours about the place and wanted to make up a tall story.
Errol and Norman Haywood, never. I know those young men well. They're older now, in their 30s. But let me tell you something about them. They still stand on that story, and have never changed a single detail of it or wavered in their account. Never been the same since those two men. Frightened them half to death, it did. I believe every word of it. Those boys will never make up a story. I know them too well for that.
Oh dear, remind me not to go near those woods at night then. The taxi driver's truck grinds to a sudden stop.
If you can get out here, ma'am, I would very much appreciate it. It's very good to meet such a fine young lady from New York, and I wish you well in your adventure. Maybe I will see you around in town sometime.
But I don't understand. You haven't driven me to Hazelwood Heights, to the house, I mean, or the cottage, whatever you call it. Isn't it through there? I said, pointing to the long drive and the rickety-looking cattle gate that is so rusted and warped from age, but it's wide open, with the sign Hazelwood Heights worn away on it. You can only make a few letters glaring ominously from beneath the rust.
I'm very sorry, young lady. I don't think I made myself terribly clear, and I do apologize. You possibly misunderstood me. I'm afraid I'm not terribly confident about driving up to the old place in the circumstances. The place is rather spooky. It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
I bit my lip, feeling heartily annoyed. Talk about overreacting and making a mountain out of a molehill about nothing. I mean, for goodness sake, Were people all like this in Tennessee, too afraid to go near anything that had a ghostly reputation attached to it? A story, it was just a story. There was nothing more to it than an old wife's tale. It was absolutely ridiculous. I was from New York with a wise, sagacious head on my young shoulders, and I was not going to allow some obscure tale, fringed with a plethora of doubt and hearsay, to cloud my judgment under any circumstances, or to leave me feeling spooked. I had far too much common sense for that. I was prudently practical, reasoned, sensible, so being carried away on the wings of an unbridled imagination was certainly not on the cards for me. I'd come here to get away from it all, to spend some quality time here at the house that I'd inherited. The solicitor had assured me it was all in apple pie order. Furthermore, they had agreed to get the place cleaned up before I arrived, and the cleaner had unpacked all the groceries I'd ordered and delivered them to the place. At least she wasn't too afraid to enter the premises. This was the first property I'd ever owned, and at 25 years old, it felt really good to own something of value.
I'm very sorry, young lady. You can take the suitcase out of the trunk yourself. I noticed it had wheels on it when I packed it, so that's got to be a good thing. The path's a little rocky, I can see, but I'm sure you can manage. Do you think you'll be all right?
At least he's got the decency to look a little bashful. It's not exactly like I've got a choice in the matter, is it? I say, unable to disguise the annoyance that can be easily perceived in the rather brusque, abrasive tone of my voice. I climb reluctantly out of the taxi to retrieve my suitcase from the back of the trunk, while I throw a shoulder bag over my shoulders and give him a half-hearted wave, while he gives me a nod and a friendly hoot. He pulls down his driver's side window and calls out, "If you need a lift any time, man, I'll be happy to meet you right here. But I'm not going onto the premises. Good luck, ma'am. You're going to need it. You're braver than me. I'll give you that." Thanks a lot for nothing, I say to myself under my breath, as I trundle awkwardly down the long driveway, through the open gate. The wheels of my suitcase embrace the stony path, with very little enthusiasm. This suitcase has seen better days. It's been badly scratched up from years of travel. It's designed for gliding on the smooth runway of airport flooring, not a rugged country driveway like this, bespeckled with rocks, gravel and stones. It bumps precariously behind me, groaning and heaving from such an indignant trespass, as it crashes ungracefully against stones, protruding and jutting rocks, and deep angry gashes in the ground. One side of the driveway is lined with statuesque, tall, imposing trees. The other side is an open expanse of meadow that stretches out quite a way, filled with wild flowers that are rising up like ethereal, colourful sails through the knee-high grass, determined to show off their pretty faces. There are yellow butterflies darting from one flower to another. The occasional sculptural rocky outcrop hungrily bursts through the grass like a whale's large form, rearing up through the ocean waves. On the distant horizon, I see the tall billowing forms of the mountains that caress the sky with their Rubenesque shapely contours, with a confident, commanding assertiveness that demands my immediate attention. For a moment, I draw in a deep breath. The arresting mountain views have rendered me speechless. I admire how imposingly powerful they are, for these indelible mountains have graced this marvellous skyline for thousands of years, while people have been and gone, the silent witness of bygone generations. These mountains have squatted on their sturdy, secure foundations and seen it all. It's quite a sobering thought. It really is. Then I see the house that looks rather like a cottage to me as I near my approach, and there are dozens of black ravens perched on 2 oak trees that rise up tall and proud on either side of the house, with outstretched leafy boughs that remind me of huge green umbrellas. 2 or 3 ravens perched on the grey slate roof of the house eye me curiously through dark, sultry eyes. They squawk loudly when I amble over towards the cottage, and a mass of black wings flutter up into the sky like a long trailing ribbon of black. I stand still for a moment and stare at Hazelwood Heights. So this is it. The cottage is dappled by the deep shade of the oak trees that appears to have ravenously swallowed up the sunlight, so that the area around the house seems to be cast in a dark, sinister shadow that is more menacing, rather than pretty. This is not quite what I'd expected to inherit, but I remind myself that I'm very lucky that some obscure great aunt of mine, that I didn't even know, had left me anything at all. The first thought that tickles and teases my mind, with a snippet of inappropriate humour, is that Universal Studios, if they wanted a perfect haunted house for a movie, you couldn't get better than this. The place presents itself in a rather unfavourable, unflattering light that brings ominous, unseasoned thoughts to mind, rather than romantic pictures of happy days, picnicking in the woodgrove. The sash windows stare out through the walls of the house, with less than congenial eyes that seem almost to glare at you. The house is made of bricks and mortar. Its cemented walls are deliberately roughed up to create that uneven texture on the outside surfaces. The emaciated white house looks weathered, old, rather tired and fatigued, as if it's been nestled here for hundreds of years. Then I remember that it has been here for a long time. No wonder it looks so comfortable in its own skin, even if the skin itself appears to be crinkled, time-worn, and rather rugged. What had the taxi driver told me? That it had originally been owned by Farmer Hewitt in the 1800s, who was reputed to have hung two of his farmhands in the woodgrove over there, a long, long time ago. The thought makes me shudder. On the plus side, if there is one, and at this stage of the game it looks highly doubtful, I can see that the rather bodeful house is exceedingly well built, with sturdy foundations, thick solid walls, and they don't make houses like this anymore. I observe tenacious, rather rambunctious creepers have impertinently weaved their tentacles of green leafy foliage over one side of the house. I find 2 terracotta pots on either side of the front door, filled with the decayed remains of what looks like old but dead geraniums. I look under the pot to retrieve the key, where the solicitor said I would find it. I plunge the key into the lock and cautiously open the door. It squeaks and groans in protest as it opens rather reluctantly, and I find myself in the heart of the house. I'm relieved to see that the old place on the inside isn't as bad as it is on the outside. To be fair, the house is reasonably in good condition, and everything has been dusted and polished within an inch of its life, so the house gleams like a brand new pin, as the solicitor had faithfully assured me it would. One thing for certain is my great-aunt had fabulous taste. Let's just say her excellent choice of furnishings are so classic, so traditional. They have that timeless quality about them, and everything is in remarkably good condition. The house boasts large stone fireplaces and gleaming oakwood floors, along with a sweeping staircase that leads up to the top floor. The bedrooms are all spacious with their own fireplaces, and everything is comfortably cosy, with classic tasteful bed linens and quality cream curtains that frame the windows. But despite everything, I can't shake off the ominous, disquieting feeling that I'm being watched. It's all this airy, spine-chilling talk about ghosts, I tell myself, and that pernicious farmer who maliciously murdered the farmhands keeps bouncing back into my mind like an obnoxious, ill-omened rubber ball that is implacably demanding my engagement, and try as I might to sift those doomful thoughts like flour through a sieve and cast them aside, I just can't. I feel ever so slightly aggrieved about the taxi driver's inauspicious, woeful disclosure. If he had not told me this haunting, malignant story concerning the house, I wouldn't be so on edge, would I? If he hadn't spouted all this outlandish nonsense to me, my feathers would not be quite so ruffled, my mind not loaded up with the alarming, soapy suds of suggestion. I'm pleased to discover that the cleaner has stocked up the refrigerator and freezer very well, as I had requested, and she's even taken the trouble to put flowers in some of the rooms and to make the beds and lay the fireplaces, which is exceedingly good of her. The day is uneventful, monotonously unremarkable, but that is a good thing, and it's in a good way. I take a leisurely, relaxing walk around the pretty meadow, admire the prepossessing views, casually return back to the property and watch a little television, as all the electricity and plumbing are in great shape here, and have been turned back on very recently, after outstanding bills have finally been paid. That evening I returned to bed, exhausted and fatigued, realizing suddenly with a great measure of satisfaction that I hadn't given Heath, my ex-boyfriend, even a fleeting thought all day. Let's just say over the last couple of weeks my thoughts had been woefully cluttered and busily consumed with the dusty, wistful nostalgia of my ex-boyfriend. What was he doing? Who was he seeing? Why had he broken up with me? But the moment I arrived here, Heath had become all but a shadow of a memory. It was as if, being surrounded by these arresting mountain views, my troubles with him had shrunk into oblivion, whittled away into nothing, like the white smoke from a chimney, vanishing up into the clouds until it is seen no more, and is soon forgotten. I smile very happily to myself as I shrink cosily behind the covers and fall into a deep, restful sleep. But I am awoken in the middle of the night to the sound of heavy feet clomping around the house. What the hell, I think, sitting up. What the hell is that? Someone's in the house. But no sooner is my attention alerted to this sound, it just stops, as if it had never been there at all. The strange thumping sounds persisted for several long nights, where I would hear the clomping sounds of boots on the landing and around the house. But no sooner had it got my attention, the sound would vanish all over again. It was peculiarly odd, I have to say. Then one night things changed dramatically in the house. The feeling of not being alone intensified, and I could hear faint whispering everywhere, but I could not audibly detect what was being said or where it was coming from. It was more than a little disturbing. Don't let her see us. Don't let her see us. We don't want her to see us. We don't. One evening, as I'm watching television, I hear the sounds of two frightened men shrieking, "No! Please, no!" It was not a disembodied sound of a ghost. The noise was hauntingly real. I'd like to ignore the sound, I rarely would, but I just can't. Supposing someone really is in trouble out there, I can't just sit back and do nothing, can I? I put on my head torch and carry my baseball bat in my hands with me. I hurriedly dash out of doors. I hear the screaming sound again. "No! Please, no!" The voices sound absolutely terrified. I dart into the woodgrove, holding up my bat in a defensive gesture, and manoeuvre cautiously through the trees. Someone is definitely being hurt here in the woodgrove. I have to help them. I could literally taste, feel, and discern the terror in the air. It enveloped me like a fragrant perfume that I could not overlook or disqualify. But this fragrance was putridly vile. Something was seriously off tonight, but I couldn't fathom what it was. I just got this foreboding sense that somebody needed my help. The woodgrove is airy tonight, steeped in a cloying darkness that steals and subdues the moonlight and eclipses the bright light of the stars. There's a cool breeze blowing. It's puddling, whipping, and slapping the boughs of the trees so that they begin to jiggle, while the leaves on the trees rustle portentously. I amble cautiously across the earthen floor. All I can hear is the snaps and crashing sounds that my boots make as they batter against the forest debris. There are no crickets and no frogs singing into the night with their joyful aplomb, which is incredibly strange. Everything apart from the sound of my boots has become airily inauspicious, very, very quiet. And then I hear the terrified, pleading sounds of a man's desperate voice hijack the still silence. "No! Please, no! No, please, I beg you, no!" And I move towards this sound, and then I see something I cannot unsee, and how I wish I could. Then I hear a snapping sound, and then swinging on two branches, I see the silhouettes of two young men, their necks entangled in thick rope, their eyes glazed over like dead fish. The branches swing as the bodies move backwards and forwards. They are limp from the absence of life. They are probably no more than 18 years old, but dressed in the clothes of a bygone time. Then I see him, what I believe now was the murderer, Farmer Hewitt. He stands there larger than life, with a large mocking grin on his face, pleased by the duplicity of his macabre, insidious crime. I assure you, he was as solid as you or me, and looked so real, it was hard to believe he could possibly be a ghost. When the farmer sees me witnessing this gruesome scene of carnage, he turns around and looks at me, and the corner of his lips frown. His eyes glaze a bright red colour. Then he begins to chase me. I start running for my life through the maze of trees, not knowing where the hell I'm going, as panic seizes my attention. All I can think of is I need to get away. The man is going to kill me. I'm seized with the most dreadful panic, I have never known such a disabling fear like this. It's like your mind flies into a frantic frenzy, and your thoughts go wildly whirling around, fast like the clothes in a drying cycle, and you can't grab any of them, no matter how hard you try. And the only bullets that fire in your mind are the words, "Run! Run! Run!" I can hear the farmer thundering behind me. Even the breath, well, his breath is so close to mine. I can smell the very powerful stench of alcohol on it. I'm screaming so loudly at the top of my lungs. I'm certain I'm going to die. And then I run into the solid wall of black hair, and I found myself staring up into a large face with eyes so kind that I suddenly know that I'm very safe. I hear the farmer's footsteps stop and then retreat, and he walks away, and then he's gone. This ambiguous, larger-than-life creature is holding me in her arms, while my tears drench her lower torso. She's patting me gently on the back. She is ginormous. I feel like a tiny, delicate doll in her overlong, sizable arms. I hear the words in my head. "He's gone. You're safe." The creature takes me by the hand and guides me through the forest back to the house. I turn around to look at her more clearly in the light of my torch. She is so human, covered in long flowing hair, is easily about 8 foot tall, 700 pounds, and built so powerfully. Her breasts are the only small part of her. Thank you so much. Thank you for saving me. I'll never forget those eyes. They were like the eyes of God, and I'm not joking. Everything else about her was so intimidating, but her eyes, they were like a calm ocean, the reassuring rays of the sun on a warm day. I was to learn later that this ambiguous, idiosyncratic creature is known as a Bigfoot, and I unequivocally believe she saved me that night. I truly believe the ghost of Mr. Hewitt was very dangerous indeed, and I knew that I would never ever dare go into the woodgrove again, no matter what sounds I hear coming from it. Let's just say after that incident in the woodgrove, I was more than a little shook up, and so I immediately called a paranormal investigator to the house. "I've been here before, you know, when your great-aunt was alive. Lovely lady she was. Very bright pink hair she had. You've been here?" "Yes, I have. Your great-aunt was in a dreadful state when I came over. She claimed she was being terrorised by a ghost of a man called Farmer Thomas Hewitt. He used to live on this property, you know, in the 1800s. Your great-aunt loved this place. She didn't want to leave it, but she claimed the farmer was standing on the edge of her bed every night, glaring at her through menacing red eyes. She said one night he climbed onto her bed and tried to strangle her, but she screamed and reached out to put on her bedside light, and then he was gone. She discovered her body was covered in bruises and scratches. We managed to cleanse the house, get Farmer Thomas out of the place, but despite our very best efforts, he refused to go to the light. I'm glad to say Farmer Hewitt did not trouble her again, probably because he was afraid that I was going to come and cleanse him again and try and get him out of the place. But for years she claimed she could hear his footsteps clomping around on the landing, but at least he never ever stood over the edge of her bed. I can cleanse the house for you, dear, but Farmer Hewitt is not going anywhere. I can tell you that now. I communicated with him. He was as stubborn as a mule. I could not persuade him to move on. Some spirits are like that. They know they're dead, but they're terribly afraid to cross over. You can't force a ghost to do what you tell them to do. They have a free will like you or me. Your aunt insisted that Farmer Hewitt haunted the woods at night, and she could hear the disembodied cries of the men that were hung in that woods. She told me she'd never go to the woods, which is why it was so bizarre that her body was found in the woodgrove all scratched up. They claim it was a bear attack, but I'm not so sure. I told the psychic my incredulous story. I knew it was a ghost, I told her, even though it was physical like you or me. But I sensed he was going to kill me. I witnessed his macabre killing of the 2 farm boys that was being played out in our time like a movie. I saw it all. Well, that doesn't surprise me, she said. Sometimes a traumatic event leaves an indelible footprint on the land, as trauma can get replayed again and again in our time-space. My guess is the farmer saw you witness the macabre scene, and was not pleased about his secret being known by you. You see, in his eyes, he doesn't feel dead, so his reactions are going to be similar to what they would be in life. If you commit a real crime in the world, you'd want to cover it up, wouldn't you? Your first reaction is to get rid of any witnesses that could possibly incriminate you in the crime, or you would go down for a long time, or find yourself getting into real trouble. Even beyond the grave, Farmer Hewitt doesn't want his secret found out. You were incredibly lucky. It sounds like the Bigfoot you encountered scared him away. I think Bigfoots have this remarkable ability to see beyond the veil. They have a remarkable understanding of the spiritual realm that we can't even contemplate. They understand dimensions, portals, ghosts, and all that kind of thing. Things that we have no real comprehension of. How do you know it was a Bigfoot I encountered? Well, you described a Bigfoot to me. You said he was 8 foot tall, very big, covered in hair, a human-like face. You're describing a Bigfoot. Have you not heard of the creature before? I'm a New York girl. I've never given cryptid creatures much thought, to be honest. But this creature, she was intimidating, lofty, powerful. But those eyes, I'll never forget those eyes. They were so kind. Your great-aunt said exactly the same thing. She couldn't stop going on about the Bigfoot's eyes. They really are the windows of your soul, you know. They tell a lot about you. She saw the Bigfoot too. I don't believe this. Are you telling me she saw it as well? Oh, yes, on multiple occasions, didn't I say? Oh, I gather it was a female Bigfoot who kept telling her to leave the house as the farmer was dangerous, but she refused to go. So ghosts can do harm beyond the grave, can they? That's exactly what the taxi driver I met told me. Absolutely. Do you think the ghost of Farmer Hewitt killed my aunt? It's not impossible, but I can't say. Out here in Tennessee, strange things happen, you know. There have been reports here of strange creatures, skinwalkers, wendigos, dogmen, hellhounds. The list goes on. It could have been anything that killed her. To cut a long story short, I wisely decided to return to New York after this house cleansing. I certainly didn't want to go anywhere near this place again. My encounter with that formidable ghost was more than I could bear. The idea of ever encountering him again turned my blood icy cold. An event like this changes you. It shifts your whole perception of the world. When you realize there's a whole other side to life that many of us never encounter. For these fortunate people, it's easy to disregard and dismiss the encounters of many until you have one yourself. Skepticism is worn easily by those who know no better. Indeed, I would wear similar doubts and cynicism myself if I had not witnessed what I did that inauspicious night. I now comprehend why the people of Tennessee believe in all this stuff, for it's not just fairy tales or legends, it's true. To date, I still have gruesome, lucid nightmares of those 2 young farmhands hanging from an oak tree. I did sell the land off to a local farmer who knew about the hauntings but wasn't bothered about it at all, as he intended to use the land for his grazing cows to enjoy. I gather the old house was demolished, and I can't say I'm sad about that. Good riddance, I say. The house was like a sponge. It had absorbed the energy of Farmer Hewitt. All these years later, I still wonder what killed my aunt, and why she was found in the forest all scratched up. That'll always remain an enigmatic mystery. Was it a bear attack? Or was some other strange cryptic creature responsible for her death? Could it have been the angry ghost of Mr. Hewitt? Who knows? As for my boyfriend Heath, I found out the reason he dumped me. I discovered he'd been unfaithful to me. He'd made a young woman pregnant. He married her, and they were together for 3 years, until the marriage failed. I kid you not, he was back at my door, begging me to give him a second chance, and I told him I never wanted to see him again. So he left my life with his tail between his legs, and I've never seen him since. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.